While default Matplotlib lines are reasonable, they're not exactly the best. So I'm going to show you how you can create better line plots. First, we need to import our three main packages, pandas, numpy, and matplotlib. Next, the first parameter line we're adjusting is for the grid, the axis line. We're making sure that the grid is going to show up behind the chart rather than on top of it, which for some reason is the default behavior. And then we're also adjusting the resolution to make sure that the export looks reasonable. We're going to read in our data. We can see here that it's a pretty simple CSV with our entity name, which is listed right now mainly as country, but there could be also private sector entities, which is why it's entity, not just country. Then there's code, year, and yearly launches. We only care about year and yearly launches, and that's why we're selecting only those two columns. So we're selecting those columns and then we're grouping by year, and this makes sure that all of the entries with a given year are combined into 1 year per year. That's called grouping by, and then that way we have wonderful data for plotting. The next line, of course, we're making sure that we have a data frame to plot. This is the default line plot that we get with this procedure, and it works, but it does leave a lot to be desired. So we see here that we have a bunch of extra elements that we don't need. We don't really need these tick marks. The title is too small. There's an extra element around the graph that isn't necessary either. So we can clean that up pretty easily with this next chunk here. We're opening it the same way as a subplot, and we're plotting the same elements. However, you can see on the second line that the first difference here is that we're using a custom color. In this case, it's vermilion. Next, our title is descriptive, telling the audience what they should be taking away from the visual. We're making sure that it's a large font size to grab their attention, and we're changing the font color because black doesn't always work for text. It's better to have variations of gray depending on what you're trying to get across. Next, our X and Y labels are set in a slightly smaller font and a much lighter gray. They're also grouped together at the bottom left of the chart so that the eye doesn't have to bounce around to see them, and they're all placed horizontally as well because Matplotlib likes to turn text vertically for the Y label, and that doesn't work very well. We also have label padding here on the Y label, and that's just to make sure that the text stays away from the chart itself. Next, we're turning off the spines for the right and top. That's taking care of the extra box elements that we don't need. The spines at the bottom are being set to a gray so that they aren't as obvious, but they're still there to guide the eye. Finally, we're also removing the individual tick elements next to the numbers because, again, they're not necessary in this situation. This is our final product. As you can see, it looks a lot cleaner and it gets the point across a lot faster as well. However, there are still additional elements that could be improved, such as increasing the line thickness, specifically in the segment that we care about starting in 2019 when we start seeing a very significant increase, and desaturating the rest of the line. That's how you go about cleaning up your Matplotlib charts to make them look very excellent, pristine, and ready for publications. If you have any questions or any additional thoughts, procedures that you do differently, I would love to have a conversation with you down in the comments. To the stars!